Picture this: Sicily, 1040. A heavy wooden coffin grinds against the stone pavement of a besieged Saracen citadel. Inside lies the feared commander of the Northmen, allegedly dead from a sudden ravaging fever. The city guards, exhausted by months of siege and relieved that the northern monster is finally gone, unbar the iron-studded gates to allow a Christian burial. The procession moves slowly into the courtyard, the air thick with the smell of incense and mourning. The priest raises his hand to bless the dead. Suddenly, the silence is shattered. The coffin lid explodes from the inside. A giant leaps out, not rotting, but roaring with a battle-axe gripped in his massive fist. Harald is alive. Before the guards can even scream, the mourners draw hidden blades from beneath their robes. The peaceful courtyard is instantly transformed into a slaughterhouse. By the time the sun sets, the city has fallen. This wasn't a miracle, it was a cold-blooded tactical masterpiece by the most ruthless survivor of the 11th century, Harald Hardrada. But to understand how a man becomes capable of such lethal creativity, we must rewind to a muddy valley where his story almost ended before it began. Rewind 8 years, 1030 A.D., Stiklestad, Norway. A 15-year-old Harald stands in a crumbling shield wall, his knuckles white around his sword hilt. Next to him is his half-brother, King Olaf. They are outnumbered and surrounded by a peasant army that doesn't care for royal blood. This isn't a glorious duel, it's a messy, visceral massacre. Harald watches a warrior drive an axe into his brother's leg before a spear pierces the king's gut. Olaf is dead, the royal line is crushed, and chaos erupts. Harald swings desperately, a boy fighting giants, until a blade slashes across his neck and another strikes his body. The world spins, and he hits the freezing mud, buried under a pile of fresh corpses. He should have died there, but when night falls, a broken prince crawls out from under the dead. A local farmer drags him to a dark cellar where Harald lies for weeks, his body knitting together and his mind hardening into something colder than the Norwegian winter. The boy died at Stiklestad. The man who stood up was a fugitive with a price on his head and a burning desire for vengeance. Harald gathers a handful of survivors and flees into the Kiel, the frozen mountain range separating Norway from Sweden. Surviving on tree bark and hunted game, they cross into the vast emptiness of the Russian steppes and emerge in Kiev, the stone fortress of Grand Prince Yaroslav the Wise. Harald has no crown and no land, but he offers Yaroslav a scarred neck and a total lack of fear. In the service of the Rus, Harald learns a new kind of war. In the north, battles were static collisions of shield walls, but here he faces the Pechenegs, nomadic horse archers who strike like smoke and vanish. Harald adapts. He trades the singular obsession of the duel for the broader vision of a general. For 3 years, he carves a bloody reputation across modern-day Poland and Ukraine. He becomes a favorite of the prince, but when he asks for the hand of Yaroslav's daughter, Elisif, he is rejected. The logic is cold. Harald is a prince without a penny. This rejection becomes his fuel. If the world demands gold, he will go where the gold flows, south to the great city of Constantinople. Constantinople, Miklagard, is a shock to the system. Harald arrives with 500 battle-hardened veterans and joins the Varangian Guard, the Byzantine emperor's elite problem solvers. They weren't just bodyguards, they were the emperor's blunt instrument. When a province rebelled or pirates choked the trade routes, the emperor unleashed the Northmen. Harald is dispatched to the Mediterranean to hunt Saracen corsairs. On the heaving decks of Byzantine warships, his men are tanks. They wield the two-handed Dane axe, a weapon capable of cleaving a horse's skull in a single swing.
Harold annihilates the pirates, but he also loots them. He skims the cream off every sack, every captured vessel, and every tribute. While his peers spend their pay on wine, Harold banks it. He sets up a secret supply line back to Kiev, shipping chests of silver, gold dinars, and precious gems to Yaroslav for safekeeping. By 1042, Harold is dangerously powerful. The new emperor, Michael V, sees him as a threat and throws him into a dungeon on charges of embezzlement. But Harold doesn't stay in cages. His loyalists storm the prison amidst a bloody revolution. Harold joins the winning side and personally tracks down the fleeing Emperor Michael. In a brutal act that cements his legend, Harold holds the Caesar of Rome down and gouges out his eyes. To escape the city's locked harbor, Harold steers his ship straight at the massive iron chain blocking the exit, shifting his men's weight to the stern to tilt the prow over the links, and then sprinting forward to slide the ships into the open sea. The fugitive is gone. The king is coming home. Harold returns to Norway so wealthy he literally buys half the kingdom from his nephew, Magnus. When Magnus dies shortly after, Harold becomes the sole king of Norway. They call him Hardrada, the hard ruler. He brings the autocracy of Constantinople to the fjords. He doesn't want consensus, he wants obedience. For 20 years he wages a brutal war of attrition against Denmark, burning their greatest trading hubs to the waterline just to prove a point. When his own chieftains grumble about his tyranny, he invites them to reconciliation meetings and has them hacked to death in his guest hall. By 1066, Harold is 51 years old. He has survived the massacre of Stiklestad, the frozen forests of Sweden, and the intrigues of the Byzantine court. He should be retired, but a restless Viking never stops. When Tostig Godwinson, the exiled brother of the English king, whispers about the empty throne of England, Harold listens. He digs up a flimsy legal pretext and mobilizes the largest Viking force ever assembled, 300 longships and 15,000 men. The invasion begins with fire. Harold annihilates the northern earls at the Battle of Fulford, and York surrenders. But on September 25, 1066, Harold makes a fatal mistake. Believing the English king is weeks away, he leaves his heavy chainmail armor on the ships and marches his men to Stamford Bridge. It is a freakishly hot day. The Vikings are lounging by the river, unarmored and relaxed. Suddenly, the horizon glitters. King Harold Godwinson has performed a miracle, marching his army 200 miles in just 4 days. The surprise is total. The Vikings are split by the river. A lone Viking giant holds the bridge, killing 40 men with his axe before he is stabbed from below through the wooden planks. Harold Hardrada forms a desperate shield wall. In a final, suicidal burst of energy, he enters a berserker gang, detaching from the safety of the line and hacking through the armored English ranks without his own mail. It is a spectacle of pure violence, but reality isn't a saga. A stray arrow hisses through the air and strikes Harold squarely in the throat. The thunderbolt of the north falls. He was promised 7 feet of English ground, and he finally claimed it. Harold didn't conquer England, but he was the hammer that softened the English defense for William the Conqueror's arrival 3 weeks later. His death didn't just end a battle, it snapped the Viking Age shut forever. He was the last of the Sea Kings, a man who tried to force a changing world to live by the old code of blood and iron. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the last Viking, subscribe for more hidden truths of history.